Have you ever started something new just for it to begin and you to realize that you do not want to feel that unimportant or embarrassed again? Well, welcome to my first 10 hours boxing. Now, as some of you know, in these small beginnings, I am venturing to do 1,000 hours in different sports, skills, and adventures. Now, this starts with boxing, and well, starting has been a punch in the face. That's not even funny. No one's gonna like that. Dad jokes, not working. Now, beginning my training, I basically wanted to have about a 6 to 12 month plan, and unfortunately, in my naivety, didn't account for the fact that I was not going to be able to train 2 times a day, 5, 6 times a week. And what originally my plan was meant to look like this, it actually looked something like this. And I quickly realised who I thought I was, which was clearly a professional athlete, and who I actually was, a uni student trying to, do boxing on the side. We're very, very different. So let me explain my thinking. Now, with this plan, I knew it was going to be a lot of failure. It was going to be a lot of repetition and just sticking with the program as much as possible. And I quickly realized that, well, I wasn't going to be able to afford one-to-one training, so attending as much classes as possible was going to be the biggest thing. Now, for the membership, it cost me $37.50, but quite quickly went up to £40 a month, and that meant I needed to, for that fee, needed to be attending as much classes as possible. And I kind of just went in being honest, very much that I don't know anything. I kickboxed when I was like, 11, 12, so I knew to, like, simple things like breathe out when you kick, or punch in this case. And yeah, so I was confident, and I knew that if I could stick to this for 6 months, then this was going to leave me in a good position to review things and see how things were going on. And I knew this plan, even as though I was quite naive at how much I could do, would be successful enough if I stuck to it, and that was the main thing. Now, consistency and 1% improvement had to be the thing in my mind the whole time. Coming into something like this, as I explained, it's not nice. You are at the lowest of your game. Everyone is better than you, even though you want to quickly be as good as everyone else, if not better. And that meant my self-talk had to be impeccable. I knew that I couldn't go into this with any negative mindset, and if I had any reason to put myself down, I had to quickly sort that out and get that ironed out so that I could continue going and not let that hold me back. And actually, on the other side of the spectrum, it was that I couldn't let my mind go too far one way, where I was gonna be like, oh, this is easy, this is class, and let my ego and pride take over, where I put myself in a dangerous situation, whether dangerous in the sense of like I was going to get my ass kicked, or going to be that I just thought I was better and ended up risking injury or heading up, picking up bad habits. So yeah, it was about staying balanced, and balance was going to be a big thing in this. And in my ADHD brain as well, going to be about keeping that dopamine and keeping that motivation up while doing this. Now, all this is theory, I must say. Now, I didn't think this was going to hurt so much, and I think what threw me the most was how on fire parts of me were that I didn't know I had. Like, I didn't realize I had exceptionally weak shoulders until that first night when I'm just punching this bag straight, and I'm like, I genuinely can't do this anymore. Like, I can't put my hands out in front of me. And that quickly humbled me to realize that this was going to be much harder than I intended. Now, a lot of the focus was surrounding my stance, and it wasn't actually something I had remembered from kickboxing as a kid in terms of the importance of how this was going to play out. And that quickly ended up being the biggest issue starting off. Now, I wasn't going to be perfect going into this, so I was just trying to focus on what they were telling. It was, you want your feet kind of facing to the side, 45-degree angle, so that you're a small target, kind of chin tucked, and then from there you're going. And what surprised me was how actually, as much as we're using our feet every day, changing how we think about movement is actually more difficult than we think. It was very, if we're stepping to the left, step left. If we're with our left foot, if we're stepping to the right, step with our right foot. And while that sounds simple in theory, anyone who boxes or wanting to get into this, you'll know that that's a bit more difficult when it comes to it. So what I was brought up with was rugby and football. And they were rugby being my main sport and football kind of being the thing everyone played when you were younger. And they were always surrounding quick feet. In rugby, as soon as you're kind of in that contact, you wanted them quick feet so that you could keep your strength and keep your momentum and kind of go from there, where, and change direction even really fast, say football for that reason. But now I had to have these wide feet where it was all about having a strong base, but was completely different to what I was used to. Now, yeah, to be honest with you, I was mocked and told I kind of looked like I was doing an Irish dance, and I don't blame them. I probably was. So on my second week in, I knew that I had my fight coming up. So I have my fight 29th of March, and again, as I was saying earlier, I didn't want to get too big for my boots, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to be doing as much as possible. Now, this is coming from the guy who was like, I want to be training 5-6 times a week. So, of course, I didn't want to just be attending this one class a week. So I'd asked, saying, okay, can I join the amateur boxing? And was recommended not to. Not because, partly because I wasn't ready, but also because there was fights coming up. All the intermediates were getting ready for fights. The coach had a fight pro, and I wasn't going to probably get that time that I needed. So what actually he recommended, which was interesting and could change the whole trajectory of this, but was going to kickboxing. And there he says there's loads of coaches, and they would be able to kind of drill these basics that we were looking for. So stance, of course, making sure we're punching correctly, making sure we're not overextending and leaving ourselves vulnerable. And while there is subtle differences in the two sports, well, one, you're using your legs, but very much you need the same set of instincts and the same set of skills. And this would just hone as well as working fitness. And he says that fitness was going to be my biggest thing. Now, I would consider myself quite fit. Played rugby all my days, active in the gym, and ran a marathon last year. And all of that, though, I quickly realised that all this kind of interval training was completely different, in the sense of I was just using different muscle groups in a very different way. And while I thought this would all carry over, and I'm sure it has in many ways, it hasn't as much as I thought it was going to. Now, I had started with the intention of training twice a day, once in the morning and once during the evening, unless I was working. This I quickly realised would not be realistic with the other commitments, such as starting my business, university work that paid me, and having a life. Well, for the first couple of weeks this was possible, and I loved the training. It was not manageable, and I wanted to try to keep everything balanced. I found myself exhausted during the tasks I was doing, and while I could do that, there was something much worse happening. Rushing. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm rushing, nothing goes to plan. I find myself forgetting things such as keys, my lunch, plans. I had made a diary and with my friends. Overall, my stellar, faultless routine had its immediate downfall of being too busy and leaving no grace period to do everything. Now, maybe you're the person who can do this, or are able to bounce back instantly from one thing to the next. Unfortunately, this is not the quality of mine, and it has led me to a pretty unmotivated and frustrated place. Instead, I ended up pulling training back to once a day, 5 times a week, morning or evening, depending on when the classes were. Now, I have to say, while this channel will be about the adventure of consistency and hard work in the journey, the underlying note I want to bring throughout these videos is that we want to do this together while making sure to uphold the quality of our lives and relationships. All of this is worthless if we don't have what matters, and that's usually the people surrounding us. So if you want to train all day, I get it, so do I, but if we aren't balancing and giving it to everything else, that's when we start to lose the things surrounding us. Now, when we get out, what we have to do is put in we're going to get out as much as we put in. Now, I had started with the intention of training twice a day, once in the morning and once during the evening, unless I was working. This I quickly realised would not be realistic with the other commitments, such as starting my business, university work, and working that paid me. While the first couple of weeks this was possible and I loved the training, it was not manageable. And if I wanted to keep everything balanced, I was going to have to find out a new way. But something much worse was happening, and that was rushing. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm rushing, nothing is going to plan. I find myself forgetting things such as my keys, my lunch, my plans, even my diary and my friends I forgot. Over this stellar, faultless routine, I realised that something had to change. Now, maybe you're the person who can do this, or maybe you're able to bounce back instantly or bounce from one thing to the next, but unfortunately it's not a quality of mine, and this led to me being pretty unmotivated and frustrated. So I decided to pull back training once a day, 5 times a week, and weekends off. Now, I have to say, while I want this channel to be about the adventure and the consistency of sport, it's not going to work if I'm focusing solely on that and leaving everything else to the side. So, yeah, this is going to be a transparent report of what we need to do these things alongside life. And as much as I would love to do this full time, unfortunately, it's not possible. So if we aren't balancing and giving into everything else, then that's when we start to lose the things surrounding us. So we get out what we put in. And as far as I was concerned, I think 5 times a week was going to be enough. So what was the work I was doing on my own? The good thing was that I was starting to feel a slight rhythm coming into place, but don't get me wrong, we could be having this exact conversation in 10 hours time. What seemed to work for me was if I got enough Zone 2 training in through my 5k run and my skipping, then I could spend the rest of the time working on technique and more intense training. Now, I knew that my training was targeted towards being able to fight on fight night in 8 weeks. Therefore, a lot of what I was doing was targeted on rounds. I knew that the fight was going to be 3 rounds of 2 minutes. So I was hoping that if I could work hard for 6 rounds of 2 minutes, then this would help accommodate the stress and adrenaline of fight night. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about, Josh? So from previously competing in rugby, and when I ran my marathon, I knew that adrenaline would have me thinking that I'm much fitter than I am. And I wanted to be able to be calm in that ring, knowing that if I put in the work for 2 fights, therefore I had no reason to panic or get scared that I was going to puff out and need to start swinging wildly or losing my footwork. The classes would help me to keep my form and the combinations right, but on my own I needed to be taking myself to that place.
Now again, I'm wildly overestimating myself, thinking that week on week I was going to take myself to failure. But rather it was again about these small incremental improvements that were getting me better each time. So just to finish this off, I just wanted to thank you for tuning in. I know there's been a big delay in the video going up, and it's simply just because I'm realizing how much work editing is going to take and how I'm going to really have to put in the time to make this happen and to make sure that you're getting high quality videos, because I've been thinking how to do it with less work, but the reality of it is I just have to put in the graft and make sure that I'm editing these videos. So I hope you enjoyed. I will be trying to put videos out on a weekly basis, but this might be delayed for any case, but I'll keep you updated, and I look forward to you tuning in.